Hi and welcome back to another how-to video. This time we're going to have a look at how to save our images for submission to the digital competition for the club. If we have a look here, we'll see that the requirements are that they are no bigger than 1920 by 1200 pixels and that they shouldn't be more than 2 megabyte in size. So that's what we've got to work with, 1920 by 1200. And some people are getting confused as to how to make sure their images comply with that requirement. So what we're going to have a look at now is a very good little website that I've discovered and come across. So we'll zoom in so we can see it. So if we have a look at this URL here, Tool Studio, but with a dot. So it's toolstud.io. And this person's put a lot of effort into creating these calculators, one of which is called a photo calculator. And we've got aspect ratio, composition, dots per inch, light calculator, megapixel, some very good calculators throughout, but the one we're interested in here is called aspect ratio. So if we go to aspect ratio, you can see it's straight off the top, 1920 by 1080. That is the standard aspect ratio for a high definition computer screen. 16:9 is that ratio, which is why it's saying it's a perfect match for your computer screen. But that's not what we need to comply with. We need to comply with 1920 by 1200. Now I'm going to hit calculate. So here's our aspect ratio. The ratio between horizontal and vertical is what that means. And it's read as 1.6 to 1. So we can see that this screen ratio here is 16:9. And that our image at 1920 by 1200 is going to have some bits on the side. We don't care, because all we're interested in is making sure that our image is of the correct aspect ratio for that size. So for the image size 1920 by 1200, your aspect ratio should be 1.6 colon 1, 1.6 to 1. And let's have a look at that 1.6 to 1 in practice. So if we have a look at our other Thunderbolt lightning, very, very frightening. So I have an image now that's loaded here. Let's get out of there, and you can see that I've in fact already edited this one. 6000 by 3750. This is the Canon RAW version 3 image. Let's pick the one next to it. And the first thing we're going to do is to hit our crop button. That's the crop button here. And then we're going to select aspect. Make sure that this padlock is locked. That means it's going to conform both in the X and Y axis. Both the horizontal and the vertical are going to adjust themselves accordingly. If you unlock it, it's freeform. And in this case, we don't want freeform. We want it locked. We want it custom. And this is where we're going to put our ratio. So where it says times, in your head, replace that with the colon, the two dots. And it wants to be 1.6 to 1. That is the correct ratio. And if we hit OK, we can now see that it has cropped top and bottom. You can see those blank areas. And all we have to do then is hit, well, before we do that, we can actually decide we're going to lose some part of the photograph. And in this case, it's nothing to the sides, just top and bottom. What do we want more? Do we want a halfway bet and sort of say, we'll lose a little bit at the top, a little bit at the bottom? It's personal choice and the composition, what's in the image, but you will lose some part of your original, and there's no two ways about it. And to make that set in stone, I hit enter. And that's not too bad. Now we've got it in the right ratio, we can now export the file. But maybe before we export it, we could go, well, yeah, let's export. File, export. I'm going to put it on my desktop. I'm going to export it as a PNG. In this case, let's go JPEG. And here's the one we want. Resize to fit 1920 by 1200. Now, because we've cropped it to the correct ratio to match 1920 by 1200, when we hit export, we've already cut out the parts of the photos that the cropping process has lost for us. So it's going to look exactly as the one it does on screen, but much smaller. So I'm going to hit export, and that's exporting that file. And let me see if I go and find the file now. Export the file. Let's bring it over here so we can see it. There it is. And you can see the file well fits in with the 2 megapixel limit. And if we double click on that preview file, let's have a look. Let's bring it over. There it is perfectly. We already knew what we were in for before we even exported and resized this file. We knew that because that's what it looked like before the resize, but after the crop. Now, for some people, they go, well, look, I don't want that crop to be there permanently. So you can just simply go edit undo, which has undone the crop. But we now have the file that we can submit or send. So just recapping, the ratio is 1.6 to 1. If we have a look at that, we can see that. There it is there for 1920 by 1200, 1.6. And then if we go back to our desktop, we select crop, aspect, custom, 1.6 to 1, hit OK, hit enter, file, export, scroll down. If that's not selected, select it, put in the correct resolution or dimension, and hit export, and done. That's pretty much it. You can't go wrong with that. Have a look at toolstud.io. Some great calculators there. And I hope that helps.